This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com with a daily wrestling news update. AEW is rumored tomorrow to be announcing a deal with Warner Brothers Media that involves a new show, Collision. But Rampage is just doing terrible numbers, 0.09 for this past week's rating. It's like they've given up on Rampage. So, I mean, I want AEW to do well. It's good for my business, but now they're adding another show, Collision. Is Rampage going to fall even more? That remains to be seen. Francis Ngannou, who reportedly turned down over $10 million to fight John Jones in UFC. A lot of people say because he knew Jones was going to beat him, and he didn't want to take a loss like that, has signed with the PFL, where Jake Paul is fighting for now. I mean, whether he was going to lose or not to John Jones, he would have made enough money there where he might never have had to fight again. So I don't know if he made the right decision. I've heard he was offered as high as $18 million to fight John Jones in UFC because they were so desperate for a marquee opponent. Of course, Jones is saying now, after his Stipe Miocic fight this summer, he's probably going to retire. He decimated Cyril Gang in his first heavyweight fight. The other thing I got to say about the upcoming PFL fight between Jake Paul and Nate Diaz is I saw the press conference for it, and Nate Diaz appears to have serious concussion issues. And it's interesting because the captain who I collaborate with on getting some shoot interviews from him, and I've posted some of his footage on this channel recently, told me when he had Nate Diaz for an autograph signing, he was not all there. He was suffering from concussion issues. So it's interesting that he's getting cleared to fight in this fight against Jake Paul, because this is not a guy that should be taking a lot more hits to the head. I'm no doctor though. Billy Graham is still alive. He's still on life support. One of his close friends, Mike, that operates his website, lives in Florida, and he's flying to see Billy Graham in Phoenix as we speak. So Valerie's going to be picking him up at the airport. One of the most impressive things about Billy Graham, other than being an amazing survivor, is he holds the highest percentage of main event sellouts at Madison Square Garden, 95%. He sold out 19 of 20 times as a Madison Square Garden headliner. It's higher than Bruno Sammartino's percentage of sellouts. And Bruno, Billy will even tell you, Bruno had the most sellouts, but not the highest percentage. But Billy wasn't given a run. One of the reasons why Billy fell into a depression after having to lose to Backlund was because he was crazy popular, and even as a heel, he had he had people cheering him. And if he had been made a babyface, he could have probably been he probably could have been a Hulk Hogan back in the late 70s if they had gone with Hulk Hogan, if they had gone with turning him a babyface, but they were insistent on making Bob Backlund the champion, which, by the way, Billy Graham was on the undercard of a lot of those Bob Backlund bouts, as was Dusty Rhodes, Andre the Giant. They really padded, even Bruno, they padded the undercard of those Backlund belts. He was still cards to make sure they had good turnouts. But Backlund, I mean, he was most entertaining to me for his heel run in WWE. I respect him, but that was a terrible decision, and I understand why it had such bad effects on Billy. No, they're not going to cancel Rampage. They're going to keep it going. They have canceled Dark and Elevation, which were the exclusive YouTube shows, because apparently they're going to announce for AEW that it's going to be now exclusive to Warner Brothers Discovery. Now that won't include Ring of Honor. That's a separate company. Not that, I mean, they're separate entities, but obviously the companies mix all the time. But Rampage is still going to be around. But it's like, I understand that they're going to have a third show, and this is really going to set up the company for success because it's going to give them a lot more money. But it's like, it's not like there's a crazy demand for a third show because the second show is getting really bad ratings. Like, keep in mind, Women of Wrestling gets around a 0.5, 0.6. So Rampage is only getting a little bit more than that, and Women of Wrestling is in syndication. The other one interesting thing I heard Dave Meltzer talking about today on Wrestling Observer Radio was that with UFC, they don't really care about losing stars. Like, for instance, Ngannou, they couldn't make a deal with him. They never really cared if he goes somewhere else. They're like, we're the big leagues, so why should we care? It's their loss if they leave. So Meltzer brought up, it'll be interesting if they have that same attitude with WWE stars, because if you remember, when AEW first came, they signed all these guys to huge contracts to avoid them jumping to AEW because Vince McMahon is extremely competitive, and he didn't want AEW to exist. So he tried to do the best to lock everyone up to crazy contracts, which didn't last. They let a lot of those guys go and re-signed a lot of them to smaller contracts later. But it'll be interesting to see now with Endeavor taking over WWE if they're gonna let more people go than in the past, where they would have cared more about holding on to him. The other thing, an update on Randy Orton, is I did hear Meltzer say that he's been making between 3.5 and 4 million a year for a very long time now. He could retire, and apparently doctors have advised him he probably shouldn't wrestle again, but in all likelihood he will wrestle again and just keep doing a safer style. When am I moving to Arizona? Well, it's not that simple. I'm a Canadian citizen. I'd have to get a U.S. work visa. Maybe if AEW ever hires the Blood Hunter, which is a 1 in a million chance, even though he's a lot more skilled and experienced than a lot of their wrestlers, maybe that would happen. But not until I'm rich enough to live there, because I can't work there.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe